The mind nucleus of the atom. 20 centuries ago, the consummate illuminate of all time tried to tell the early man of his day that God centered his universe and man. He freely told man that the kingdom of heaven was within, and that the Father of man dwelleth within man. His words had no meaning in those days of little knowing. The people of his day demanded an objective God, a ruler over men, a personal God outside of themselves, who had human emotions. That was the pagan concept of pagan intellects. Very slowly down through the ages, the mind God of a mind-created universe began to dissolve the pagan concept of a God outside of his creation, to a mind which is omnipresent within it. Today, millions of people have entirely discarded the pagan concept and have accepted the mind concept without comprehending its full meaning. But man in the mass throughout the world still holds the pagan concept. Mary Baker Eddy, the illuminate of the last century, advanced the human race intellectually in that respect more than any other being who has ever lived since the days of the Nazarene. Civilization progressed dynamically and spiritually as man's concept of God thus changed. With even this progress, the words, "Seek ye the kingdom of heaven within you," have no dynamic meaning. The human race can never become ascendant until it is fully aware of God's presence within man and all things, as it is aware of objective things. The brotherhood of man ideal can never come into its full meaning and practice till that new day of enlightenment. In the month of May 1921, other words of the same meaning as those uttered 20 centuries ago were written down as another message came to man to tell man where to find God. These are the words of that message. For behold, I am within all things centering them, and I am without all things controlling them. I center universe as my knowing, my universe encircles me. These words, which are a fragment quoted from the Divine Iliad message, are fraught with cosmic meaning. And I'll stop right here and interject that I read both the Divine Iliad 1 and the Divine Iliad 2. I have playlists for them. Maybe I'll put them over in the description bar. They were written to tell of a newly dawning age, that the nucleus of the atom is the still magnetic light of God, the creator of the atom, and that the atom is the electrically divided pair of moving lights which manifest his thinking. God centers his universe. God holds every atom of it together to manifest him by its purposefulness. God gives of himself to all his universe in an eternity of endless regivings. God's universe regives of itself to God in an eternity of endless giving. That which God gives is love. That which is regiven is love. That is the divine story of creation. It is a story of cause and effect in the giving and regiving of love. It is the one story of God's knowing, expressed by his thinking, illumined by the light of his imagining. It is told in the language of light, projected from his existent stillness into existent stillness, to simulate motion where naught is but stillness, to simulate dimension where dimension is naught and naught else is. There is naught but God, and God's knowing, and his thinking, and his imagining, in all this seeming universe of mine, which alone is. These are the things which long ago long ages of time and experience fraught with the agony which is a part of ignorance. Let me start that over. These are the things which long ages of time and experience, fraught with the agony which is part of ignorance, have tried to whisper to man from within his inner consciousness. The silent voice of God has been ever active in this respect. Intuition and inspiration have also been ever active in this respect. God's messengers to man, the geniuses, the cosmic illuminates, and the rare mystics, have ever been active in this respect, even though man crucifies them for their service to man. The time has come when unfolding intelligence in man should tell him that the divine spark of inspiration and the silent voice which speaks to him from within is the magnetic light of mind and the source of his energy. We have been saying all through this book that it is time that all men should know our universe. We shall now add to that by saying that all men should know God and his universe as one with themselves. God centers all units of his creation. It is God's energy which created his universe. God is the source of energy which causes all motion. God's mind is your mind. He extends the energy of his mind to every atom which moves around his center of stillness, where he takes his omnipresent stand in every thought ring and cell. Whatever knowledge you ever acquire comes to you from your mind within. Your senses cannot acquire knowledge. They can but be informed of effects of motion, and they can be mightily deceived by what they see. Knowledge can come only through mind. Mind awareness in the human race has but begun. With mind awareness comes God consciousness. God consciousness and cosmic awareness of the light of the divine presence within every man is the next step in the spiritual nature of man. Thousands and then thousands, then more thousands, are beginning to comprehend that inner voice of one's own mind coming from within each man. The reason for that is because the human race is still in its intellectual infancy. The dawn of mind consciousness is too recent for all men to think with their mind. Man in the mass still senses with his body. His desires are still dominated by his senses. His concepts are still sense-based. He hurts himself with his own acts and calls them evil. He conceives a personal God with vengeful human emotions. Evil was conceived in the sense of man. It has no existence in the light of mind. All that Jesus told the world about the unity of God and man, and the location of the mind kingdom within every man, has no meaning except for the very few illumined ones, and the very many who now so deeply desire that illumining. Yes, God consciousness is slowly infiltrating the human race as man knows more and more how to think with his mind instead of sensing with his body. We who know God in us are desirous of illumining the path for you to find that light of inner knowing. And when you do find it, you will then be able to say, with deep knowing, I and my Father are one, and you will know all things. The nucleus of every atom is mind energy. The electric power of motion which spins spirally in one direction throughout all the universe records mind knowing in mind-centered rings. Electric rings are atoms, and united pairs of rings are atomic systems and cells. Compressing atoms multiply to express life to its maturity in cells and systems. Cells and systems then divide again into expanding atom rings to rest in their eternal cathode selves, which man mistakes for death. All motion is mind thinking and rests from mind thinking. Thinking is cyclic, but the energy source of thinking is eternal. All of the energy of all creation is in the omnipresent vacuum of the zero universe. The error of man's observation of universal fact lies in his beliefs that energy moves. The omnipresent vacuum never moves. It is the fulcrum from which motion draws its energy to move. But the fulcrum never moves. Every ultramicroscopic point in this cosmic vacuum tube, which the universe is a fulcrum from which mind desire is extended to express the ideal of mind. Mind desire is the sole energy of the universe. Motion is but the lever which expresses the energy extended to it from the fulcrum. As God's mind is omnipresent, so also are all of the qualities and attributes of mind omnipresent. That is what man of the future must know and comprehend. He must know that all knowledge and all power exist at every point in all of the universe. When he finally knows that, he will know that all knowledge and all power are within himself. Man's greatest lesson of life is to become aware of that all-presence within the light of himself. That is what cosmic consciousness means. It means becoming mind-conscious rather than body-conscious. Let us illustrate the meaning of the above in this way. If a man looks into a mirror, he fully believes that he is looking at himself. That is the belief of man for long ages. He is not looking at himself, however. He is but looking at the rings of motion which are spinning around his eternal self, for a period of activity between a rest point in which he is building an image of what he thinks his self to be. No man can see his self, but he can know his self. Seeing is electric sensing. The senses are motion. Motion can sense only motion. They cannot sense the stillness of eternal balance, but they can sense the motion of divided balance. When a man stands in perfect balance, he cannot sense that condition. The very instant he falls out of balance, be it ever so slight, he is then aware of it. The electric current of motion vibrates within his senses, and his senses become electrically aware of it. He misinterprets the motion of his senses for mind thinking. If a man is perfectly comfortable, his senses are not aware of it. If he becomes cold, his senses then tell him of his unbalanced condition in respect to his environment, and he puts a coat on. His body has told him these things, however, and not his mind. The measure of unfolding intelligence in man is a measure of his mind knowing in relation to his body sensing. Has man unfolded intellectually to the extent in which he can hear God's voice inspiring him to become co-creator with him by interpreting his qualities of love, beauty, rhythm, harmony, or balance? Or is he limited to fulfilling the demands which the motion of his body cells are demanding of him? This is the nature of the knowledge which will give the coming race more geniuses and mystics and great leaders among men for the upbuilding of an enduring civilization of peace and goodwill on earth. This knowledge can be acquired only through desire for it. Desire can be awakened and then multiplied through knowledge. To acquire knowledge, look within your own centering self, for it is there awaiting you. The silent voice of your eternal self forever whispers its omnipotence and omnipotence to you. The following diagrams, which accompany the words of this chapter, are for the purpose of giving you that knowledge of where your power lies awaiting its manifestation by your body. We will begin at the beginning and picture for you one thought ring of motion, which constitutes this entire electric universe. Bear in mind that there is not any other form in nature than this one, alpha, omega form, and combinations of them. Figure 48 represents a single thought ring of motion which surrounds its motionless mind center. From this mind center, all knowledge and power is extended to the electric thinking which records the ideal of mind. This universe is, therefore, composed of mind and thought motion. Its thought pulsations multiply to the high potential of maturity, and then divide into the rest from which they were born, to be again reborn for another period of motion. This figure represents the inner voice which speaks to you inspirationally, if you are sufficiently cosmic to be aware of it, or to lower animal life instinctively. Following this diagram are others of a sequence which demonstrate that bodies are created and given life for a purpose by increasing fast thought power motion around their energy source. After they have fulfilled their purpose, they must give back to their source that which has been given, to fulfill the law of love, which demands equal giving and re-giving. It must be noted that nature never takes, it only gives. The following diagrams illustrate this principle fully. Each one of them is the prototype of one cycle of an electric current, or an electric thought wave. There is no other expression of motion than this in all nature. In studying these illustrations, fix upon your mind the one thought that the entire omnipresent vacuum, out of which motion appears, has knowledge, all power, and all presence. What happens anywhere in it happens everywhere in it. Your senses may see it only at one point, but your mind knows that it is omnipresent. The radio and television tells you that. Every schoolboy is conscious of omnipresent actions through his familiarity with television. That fact he has learned from the radio and television. There is still another greater fact which lies ahead for future generations of cosmic men to learn. That great fact is that all knowledge and all power exist within him, and can be acquired by him for the asking, in whatever measure he shall desire. To demonstrate our meaning, we refer you to the two cyclone drawings, figures 51 and 52. In these drawings is a measure of force expressed by motion. That means of force is what the cyclone asks for. No, wait a minute. That measure of force is what the cyclone asks for and no more. If it desired to be bigger and more powerful cyclone, it would have more power extended to it for that purpose. For unlimited or omnipotent power centers it. That principle applies to all creation. A man is what he desires to be. All knowledge and power are his for the asking. They center him. They are his kingdom of heaven, which is within him. Whatever he desires and asks for, with full awareness of his oneness with his Creator, he can have by working with God to create it. That is why one man knows more than another, or has more power than another. He has learned of his closeness to his mind center, and knows how to ask for it, and the conditions upon which it will be his. The only way it can be his is to know how to work knowingly with God, by becoming one with Him as co-creator. The more that one can feel God's presence, moment by moment, the more his mind awareness multiplies. That is the kind of mental progress which makes man aware of the unlimited knowledge and power, which is omnipresent everywhere, and can be expressed around any point of gravity, which is chosen as the center of that expression. This ideal is beautifully expressed in the Divine Iliad message as follows. Desire you what you will, and behold, it standeth before thee. Throughout the eons it has been thine without thy knowing, even though thou hast but just asked for it. Sit thou not and ask, acting not, for unless thou reach out for thy desire, it shall not walk thy way to thee unaided by thy strong arms. Desire ye what, you will, and it shall be thine. All my universe will give it thee in the strength of thy desiring, and in the strength of thy action in reaching out for thy desire. Behold, I am within all things, centering them, and I am without all things, controlling them. But I am not those things which I center and control. I am the center of my universe of me. Everywhere I am the center of all things, and I am everywhere. For full comprehension of God's words, as expressed above, one should dispel all idea of the fulfillment of desire by wishful thinking and words of supplication, unfollowed by action. The last paragraph of the above is scientifically demonstrated in Figure 6. The entirety of this idea is expanded and exemplified in God will work with you but not for you. Now here are the diagrams. Body sensations, and it looks like it's like rhythm, intuition, instinct, inspiration, balance, concept, beauty, energy, knowledge, the still small voice, ideal, love, vision, inner vision, a mind-centered thought ring of motion. I might want to make a copy of this and make it real pretty and put it on my wall. Figure 48 is a section of a body cell, magnified millions of diameters showing relation of mind to body. All matter is composed of thought rings of motion compressed together in spherical cells, atoms, planets, and suns. Thought rings are what we call our senses. They are mind-centered and mind-controlled through electrical messages sent to them from within, and are received as instinct, intuition, inspiration, or other states of intelligence in accord with the ability of a body to recognize the nature of the message thus received. Man alone has conscious awareness of the divine nature of the messages, but man must be far on his way to spiritual unfolding before he is fully aware that they are directly from the Creator to his self. These centers in the omnipresent universe of mind constitute the kingdom of heaven, which Jesus bade all men to seek. Now here's another diagram with 3 A, B, and C in it. Thought ring, electric current, and electric current number C. Magnified thought rings moving around mind source. Mind source, I guess, is that little circle in the middle. A sliced section of an electric current illustrating motion around its source of energy from which it was extended. An electric current sent through a solid cable of this dimension would be a series of rings like A and B. It would be a very weak current, for there would be a very large hole of non-motion within it. Now this next diagram, mind decentration, less thought power, less body awareness. Mind concentration, greater thought power. Electric compression increases potential. Electric expansion lowers electric potential. More vitality, life, growth, polarity. Devitalization, death, decay, depolarization. General radioactive, nature's life process. Radioactivity, nature's death process. A, represents low potential. The gradual increase in power of expressing the energy extended from the source is in the direction B and C and D. Motion multiplies as thought intensity becomes concentrated, or as electric rings become compressed. Great expression of mind energy by electric motion as speed of centripetal force is multiplied. Life itself is possible only through fast motion around its energy source. Every creating thing in nature multiplies its life processes in the direction from A to D. It then multiplies its death processes in the direction from D to A. Here's another diagram. Can't tell what it's of. Figure 51. The polarizing principle. This diagram represents the multiplication of power by the multiplication of motion. Electricity creates gravity in this manner. The next chart. Radioactivity expands. And I'll just leave it on that for just a little while so you can see it. Electric compression principles, analysis of the relation of stillness to motion and of energy to the expression of energy. Now this next one shows I don't know what that is. Coma Berensis, whatever that is. Maybe it's the name of a star system. We have so much better pictures of star systems and nebula now that we get pictures of from the many telescopes that are floating around in space. But I guess this is all he had in his day. Polarization is centripetal, depolarization is centrifugal. Every action in the universe is created in pairs. Its reaction is a part of it and is simultaneously created. The union of every action with its reaction produces an effect which is always the image of the cause of the action. Your mind is universal. It is God's mind. When you have discovered that fact, you become co-creator with God. Until you do discover it, God speaks to you through instinct. When you finally do discover it, all knowledge comes to you from that still, small, silent voice which extends inspiration, beauty, intuition, rhythm, and all of the mind qualities you did not have until the dawn of consciousness began to awaken a realization of them in you. Realize then that your body consists solely of electric thoughts, and all electric thoughts are rings of visible electric motion, centered by the still, magnetic, invisible light of your mind. If you concentrate your mind thinking, the thought rings will become smaller and spin faster. If you relax by decentrating your thinking, the holes will become larger and the rings will spin more slowly. If your thinking is unbalanced by emotional disturbances, or your actions reflect your unbalanced thought decisions, the tensions which result from such unbalance will cause every mind center which controls the balance of those thought rings to act as though they were off-center, and the spinning of the electric current around that eccentric center will be like a flywheel with its shaft eccentrically placed. When you understand this, you will know why your body develops toxins which cause your various ills. These diagrams tell you just where your mind is in relation to every one of the billions of cells